What are you doing, buddy? Are you gonna read Game of Thrones with me? We are about to start Game of Thrones. I think he's stolen my book. I think so. This is March 5th, so I am a few days behind, but I am starting Game of Thrones today. My initial goal is to just read the prologue and chapter 1, but I have a little marker here at 50 pages. I've heard a lot of good things from you guys who are already tweeting about it, so I'm really looking forward to starting. Here we go! Well, I just finished the prologue and chapter 1, and I think that's all I'm going to read at the moment in this one sitting. I do plan to finish out the 50 pages by the end of the day, but I don't know what I think yet because I think some of the dialogue is kind of tripping me up. And I have seen the show, so I already kind of know what happens, but it's really fun to remember like how they got their puppies. Well, they're not, I guess they are puppies, but how they got the dire wolves and just like the role that Ned Stark has and like where they all began. So I mean, it's kind of cool to see all of that. So I'm enjoying it so far, but I need to get more into it. I just finished section 1 of Game of Thrones this morning, so I am on page 205. And my initial impression is that it reads so much easier than I was expecting. And I know a lot of people were saying that, but then there are also people who say that it reads harder or just as hard as you would expect. So I really didn't know. It was kind of a 50-50. I didn't know if it would appeal to me or not, and it really is. There has not been a single moment of reading this book where I have thought, this is so slow and I just want to put it down. I'm not making a whole lot of marks, but the yellow marks are just quotes from Tyrion that I happen to like. By the way, Tyrion is my favorite character from the show, and he is proving to be just as much of a favorite from the book. And then the little green markers I have on here are notes about Jon Snow's mother. I'm not very far, so there's not a whole lot to react to yet, especially since I've already seen the show, so everything that's happened in the book so far hasn't deviated too much, but the book has cleared up a lot of things for me that either weren't as evident in the show or just kind of went over my head in the show. So what I want to talk about in this video are my crackpot theories for who I think is in the game for the Iron Throne. Who is going to sit on that throne at the end of the series? And I have it narrowed down to 3 key players that I think might be it in the end. So let me just tell you that I'm up to date on everything in the show, but I'm going to be using mainly only things from book 1 for the first 200 pages. But also, I haven't read any of the books ever. This is my first time reading, and I have zero knowledge of books, you know, like 4 and 5 or wherever the show hasn't covered. So some of the things that I am theorizing might play out totally differently. That's why it's a theory. And the way that I am looking at this might just be I'm reading too much into things, but the name of this series is A Song of Ice and Fire. So going from just the show, before I read the books, in the show ice is always represented by, they have that phrase winter is coming, which in the show I just thought, a lot of people say that all the time. Okay, we get it. Winter is coming and it's gonna be bad. It's going to make living conditions horrible. And then you have the wall and the north and just the deadly ice and the weird creatures, the White Walkers or whatever. And then fire, I'm thinking who represents fire? And in the show, it very much is Dany. She is a Targaryen who are the blood of the dragon, and dragons represent fire. Hello. Alright, well, he's gonna be here for a minute. Anyway, dragons and Targaryens, that is the fire aspect. So as I've been watching the show, I have definitely been thinking, like, I think she might be it in the end. Well, now that I have been reading the book, I have picked up a lot more on the symbolism of ice. It really escaped me in the show that Ned Stark's sword is called ice. And I didn't realize that winter is coming is actually like the family words of the Starks. I just thought people liked to say that all the time. I didn't realize that's actually like their family motto. So now I'm thinking, okay, fire is covered by the Targaryens. Ice is totally the Starks. Not to mention that the book, even the back of this book, no characters are mentioned on here at all except for the Starks. This book is pitched as the story of the Starks, and it follows a lot of the Stark kids, which I know that characters come and go in this book. I know we've got a ton of characters. We've got Lannisters and Baratheons, and there's gonna be Tyrells and whatever, and I know that some of the characters that I know from the first 200 pages are not going to be around even in the next book. So I know that characters come and go, and this may not always follow the Starks, but ice and fire, I really think it's going to come down to Starks versus Targaryens in the end. So which Stark do I think it's going to be? In the end, if there is one key player with the Starks family, I think it is Arya. And that's not because she's so tough and so kick butt, which she is, fine, but her first chapter, just reading the very first time we ever meet her, she reads so much like the typical YA heroine. And I know this isn't YA, I read a ton of young adult books, so maybe I'm just reading into it too much, but the first time we ever meet Arya, all she keeps saying is, I have mud brown hair and I live in the shadow of my beautiful, wonderful sister who's the best in school. That's such a typical, like, heroine thing to say. It seems to me like she is going to be that ugly duckling who rises to power to save the day. And I don't know that Arya particularly wants to rule, but what if she's thrust into that position? You never know. There's so much more of this story to come. But that is not all of my theory. There is a third part to this theory, and that comes solely from reading the books, because I didn't pick up on this at all in the show, and that is Jon Snow. Now, my opinions on Jon Snow from the show, which are staying true in the book as well, is that I just think that his sections are boring. I don't care about the Wall. I don't care at all. You know, Jon Snow as a character is fine, but I am just not interested in his storyline. I find the politics of what's going on in the South around King's Landing and like who is really contending for the throne, I find that so much more interesting than what's happening on the Wall. And yet they focus a lot of time on him. Maybe all of that is just showing character growth for a much more important role that he is going to play in the future, and that on its own would not really signify much to me, except that we don't know who Jon Snow's mom is. So at 200 pages in, so far, there have been 2 mentions of his mom in a manner that was very descriptive. And the very first one is where we're in Catelyn's point of view, I think. Caitlin, or Catelyn. I can't unsee the E in her name. She's talking about how devastated she was when she and Ned were reunited and he showed up with this illegitimate child. But all of these servants were gossiping about who Jon Snow's mother was. Dang it, what's her name? Ashara Dane, who was in the service of King Aerys Targaryen, the Mad Kings. She's like the sister of his King's Guard or something like that. Tall and fair with haunting violet eyes. Who do we know that has very fair coloring and violet eyes? The Targaryens. This Ashara person is not a Targaryen by name, but in the appendix it even says under House Targaryen, their like characteristic is being very fair with violet eyes. And I know that Ned will not confirm this to her when she asks him about it, but what if Ashara is Jon's mother and he is half Targaryen and half Stark? Fire and ice. I don't know, like, so I'm thinking this is the first 200 pages of the entire series, and his mother, who she may or may not be, has been brought up enough times to make me think that this is going to come back around at some point in the future, and it might have some importance. So like I said, these are just crackpot theories. I really don't look up a lot of Game of Thrones stuff online because I want to avoid spoilers since I haven't read the later books, so I don't look things up. I have no idea if these are common theories or if they're really dumb theories. This is literally just, as a newbie to the series, these are some things that I was picking up on that I just found really interesting. But those right now are my 3 contenders for the throne in game, like looking way ahead. I know that a lot of people are noticing that we don't know who Jon Snow's mom are, and they're wondering about it too, so I'm really excited to see how that does in fact play out, and I hope that it is of importance and that we aren't all just looking for things where there isn't really something to be looking at. But it's going to be very exciting, I think. And if you guys have noticed anything so far that you are making up theories about and you think things are going to come back around, let me know down below. I would like to hear it. Again, I am so thankful for everybody that has joined this read along, because I don't think I would have actually picked up the book without knowing that there are other people out there reading this with me, and I am absolutely loving it so far, and this is like my kind of book. How did I go so long without reading this? Yeah. I've told you my favorite character and my crackpot theories and things that I'm noticing in the book that I did not notice in the show, so I think that that's a pretty good video. I am looking forward to watching all of your videos about the read-along as well, or just reading what you're commenting in the group or in the comments below. I have checked out the discussion thread in the group, and you guys are talking about some really interesting things, and that is really cool to see how we're all approaching this. So I think that's going to be it for this video. I kind of would like to make a video for each section, but it really just depends on what my thoughts are, because I have seen so much of the show that I don't know how much new reaction I can have to it. I will at least have the wrap up done when I finish the book, so I'm not sure what you can see from me next. I am really just super winging this read along. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Bye!